Hello everyone, I am Silencium, and in this video I want to take you on a long, careful journey through Solo Leveling. Not just as a popular anime, but as a phenomenon that arrived with enormous expectations, and then had to prove itself in front of one of the loudest fan bases in modern anime. Solo Leveling began as a South Korean web novel created by Chugong, and it later grew into a hugely successful Webtoon adaptation associated with H-Goon and the late debut of Redice's studio, which is important because many people did not discover it as a novel first. They discovered it through the visual force of the Webtoon. When the anime adaptation was announced, the pressure was immediate, because this was not a niche title being adapted for a small audience. This was a global hit with fans who already had a very clear image of how Sung Jinwoo and his world should feel. The anime adaptation was produced by A1 Pictures, with Shunsuke Nakashige directing, Noboru Kimura handling series composition, Tomoko Sudo on character design, and Hiroyuki Sawano on music. And those names matter because they shaped the tone of the final result, especially the mix of sleek action, dramatic build-up, and that polished modern fantasy atmosphere that helped the series feel bigger than a typical weekly power fantasy. In Japan, Season 1 began TV broadcast in January 2024, with the main Saturday late-night broadcast starting on January 6th at 2400 on channels like Tokyo MX and BS11, which is effectively January 7th in calendar terms. And in the United States, the anime arrived via Crunchyroll simulcast on January 6th, 2024. Then Season 2, titled Solo Leveling. Season 2, Arise from the Shadow, began in Japan in January 2025, with the official Japanese on-air listing starting January 4 at 2400, effectively January 5th, and Crunchyroll announced the US streaming premiere for January 4th, 2025. That timing is part of the story too, because Solo Leveling was not released like a quiet catalog title, it was positioned as an event. And people watched it with the expectation that it would dominate conversation, the way the Webtoon dominated recommendation lists. If we go season by season, Season 1 is where the series had to win trust, and in many ways it did. The opening stretch, especially the early double dungeon material, was the perfect test for the adaptation because it needed horror, tension, helplessness, and then the first taste of the system mechanic that defines the entire series. The anime handled that opening with strong pacing and visual confidence, and even people who were not already fans of the source could understand the hook immediately. Sung Jinwoo begins as one of the weakest hunters in a world where dungeon gates appear and empowered humans fight monsters for money and survival, and the contrast between his fragility and the cruel logic of the world is what gives the first episodes their bite. What fans loved in Season 1 was the clarity of the premise, the satisfying game-like progression system, the steady transformation of Jinwoo from prey into a serious threat, and the production values that made each important moment feel cinematic. Hiroyuki Sawano's music helped enormously because Solo Leveling is exactly the kind of story that benefits from music that sounds like destiny is arriving one step at a time. The animation was not perfect every single week, but when the show needed impact, especially for key fights and turning points, it usually delivered. The voice acting, both Japanese and English, also helped sell Jinwoo's shift from anxious survivor to colder and more composed fighter. Another reason fans connected with Season 1 is that it gives a very direct kind of satisfaction. You do not need to decode a complex political mythology in the first episodes to enjoy it. The story tells you what the hero wants, shows you the obstacles, and rewards you with visible progress. That is simple, but simple is not the same as shallow when executed well. At the same time, Season 1 also revealed the criticisms that would follow the anime into later episodes. The biggest one is that Solo Leveling can feel more interested in power escalation than in developing a broad ensemble. Jinwoo is clearly the center of gravity, and for many viewers that is the appeal. But for others it means supporting characters sometimes feel like they are introduced to react to his rise rather than to exist as full dramatic forces in their own right. Some fans of the Webtoon also felt that certain scenes lacked the exact visual punch or atmosphere they imagined, which is almost unavoidable with a title that people have reread and mythologized for years. There were also discussions about pacing, with some viewers loving the fast momentum, while others felt the adaptation moved through material in a way that reduced emotional breathing room. Another point of criticism came from localization and adaptation choices, especially around names and regional framing in the Japanese version, which sparked debate among longtime readers who cared deeply about how the Korean identity of the source was represented. None of these complaints erase the hype, but they did shape the conversation, and they matter if you want a balanced video because Solo Leveling is often praised so loudly that people forget it has real weak points. Then comes Season 2. Arise from the Shadow, and this is where the anime stops being just an origin story and starts behaving like a machine built for momentum. By this point, Jinwoo is no longer the desperate underdog that everyone can casually dismiss, and the series leans hard into the fantasy of competence, control, and overwhelming force. Season 2 is where many fans felt the promise of the adaptation really paid off, because the action escalates, the stakes widen, and the Shadow Army concept gives the battles a more distinctive identity. The title Arise from the Shadow is not just branding, it signals a tonal shift, and the anime embraces that shift with stronger confidence. The fights are larger, the aura around Jinwoo is heavier, and the spectacle becomes more central. For fans who came to Solo Leveling specifically for domination arcs, cool powers, boss encounters, and the thrill of watching the main character become a myth in real time, Season 2 is often the reward they were waiting for. The anime also benefits from the fact that the audience no longer needs a long tutorial on the world, so it can move faster and deliver more payoffs per episode. The soundtrack, visual effects, and overall sense of scale are big strengths here, and when the series hits a peak, it feels exactly like the kind of modern action anime event that clips, screenshots, and reaction videos are made for. But Season 2 also sharpens the same criticisms that existed in Season 1. As Jinwoo becomes stronger, suspense changes shape, and for some viewers it weakens. When a protagonist is too dominant too early, tension has to come from mystery, consequences, or side character vulnerability. And Solo Leveling does not always balance those elements equally. This leads to a common criticism that the show can feel repetitive in structure, with each major encounter becoming another stage for proving how far above everyone else Jinwoo now stands. Many fans love that, but others start to feel that the story trades complexity for impact shots. Some viewers also continue to argue that the anime, while polished, does not always capture the exact raw intensity they felt from the Webtoon panels, especially in moments where readers expected a near-legendary visual payoff. There are also people who simply do not connect with Solo Leveling because they want richer thematic writing, more nuanced character dynamics, or a less game system-driven narrative. These are fair criticisms, and saying them out loud does not diminish the series, it just places it honestly in the landscape. Solo Leveling is exceptional at delivering momentum, style, and progression fantasy. It is less consistently exceptional when it comes to ensemble depth and emotional complexity outside Jinwoo's trajectory. So why do fans love it so much despite the criticism, and why do some viewers bounce off it completely? The answer is actually the same reason. Solo Leveling is extremely focused, it knows the fantasy it wants to deliver, and it commits to it with very little apology. If you want an anime about a weak hero climbing toward terrifying power through visible growth, stylish combat, and increasingly grand confrontations, this series can feel almost tailor-made for you. If you want a more balanced cast drama where multiple characters evolve in equal depth, or if you want a story that resists power fantasy conventions instead of mastering them, then Solo Leveling may feel impressive but emotionally limited. In other words, it is a strong version of a specific thing, not a universal answer for every anime taste. That is exactly why it became such a conversation magnet. In the end, Solo Leveling matters because it represents a successful cross-market adaptation with huge expectations, a visually polished anime production, and a protagonist arc that grabbed mainstream attention very quickly. It also matters because it proves that popularity and criticism can exist together without canceling each other out. You can admire the craft, enjoy the hype, and still admit the writing has limitations. You can dislike the pacing or character depth and still recognize why millions of viewers are hooked. I hope this helped you build a strong, fair, and engaging video script on Solo Leveling. I am Silencium, thank you for listening, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, please like the video, leave a comment with your own take on Season 1 and Season 2, subscribe for more anime deep dives, and I will see you in the next one.